president's agenda. Dr. Menard's attorneys say that she refused to rubber stamp unscientific reckless directives and follow dedicated health experts. What specifically did she do?
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear to themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. And transparency and credibility to the CDC by ensuring their leadership and their decisions are more public-facing, more accountable, strengthening our public health system, and restoring it to its core mission of protecting Americans from communicable diseases, investing in innovation to prevent, detect, and respond to future threats. That's the mission of the CDC, and we're going to make sure that folks that are in positions of leadership there are aligned with that mission.
And briefly on another topic, Alcatraz. Last week, a judge on an environmental concerns lawsuit said that the administration had 60 days to wind down operations there. State officials did. Now, the administration has not been shy in fighting back against what it calls activist judges. But why is it backing down this time?
We're not backing down. We've always said that we are going to continue to fight in the court of law for what's right, because we know that what this administration is doing with respect to all policy, but also immigration policy, is above the books, and we're abiding by our nation's immigration laws. And we think it's despicable that an activist judge has inserted themselves in this migrant detention facility to the point where DHS is now having to relocate these illegal immigrants to other detention facilities around the country. That is an unnecessary burden on the Department of Homeland Security and these agents who should be removing these criminals from our community. That's what the American people elected this president to do. So we've always maintained, Gabe, we're going to comply with court orders, but we're also going to fight back on them on the merits of the law. And DHS is in compliance while we disagree with this decision, and we'll continue to fight it in court. Let's go to...
Hey,
go ahead.
Thanks so much. So just following up on the CDC firing,
sure.
Are you anticipating other changes there at CDC in addition to that firing? And is the administration going through in a very sort of organized fashion? Is there a task force that's going through high-level appointees to see who is or isn't aligned with the mission? Like, should we expect more changes?
Not to my knowledge. I understand there were a few other individuals who resigned after the firing of Ms. Monarez. One of those individuals wrote in his departure statement that he identifies pregnant women as pregnant people. So that's not someone who we want in this administration anyway. So if people are not aligned with the president's vision and the secretary's vision to make our country healthy again, then we will gladly show them the door.
Caroline, can I just
go to the back?
Thank you, Caroline.
Behind you, Andrew. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. The military deployment that President Trump has sent to the Caribbean Sea close to the shores with Venezuela is massive. It's much more that is needed to simply counter narcotics operations. Is President Trump considering launching military strikes to military installments or facilities in Venezuelan soil?
I won't get ahead of the president with respect to any military action or questions about that ever. But what I will tell you is that many Caribbean nations and many nations in the region have applauded the administration's counter-drug operations and efforts. And the president is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. And as I've said from this podium before, the Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. Maduro is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this drug cartel. He has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into our country, and it is the utmost responsibility of this president and this administration to prevent the illicit flow of drugs into our country and to protect citizens from those deadly poisons. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for you.
Sure.
Democrats, including former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Bray, attacked Prairie and pushed gun control in the aftermath of yesterday's shooting. What's the White House's response to their comments?
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
My second question for you is that there have been media outlets who have glazed over the fact that the shooter was confused in their gender identity. Does the administration believe that this element needs to be investigated in the shooting?
All of the elements are being investigated in the shooting, absolutely. Which is why part of the reason the FBI director came out and immediately confirmed that facet of the investigation. John.
Thanks a lot, Carolyn. Two questions on two separate issues. First of all, the drone and missile strikes that took place overnight in Ukraine. General Keith Kellogg, the president's special envoy, has described these attacks as egregious. Do you agree with that description, and do you view President Putin as an impediment to getting peace between these two countries?
Well, it's not about if I agree, it's about what the president thinks, and I know what the president thinks because I talked to him about this. He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are two countries that have been at war for a very long time. Russia launched this attack on Kyiv, and likewise, Ukraine recently dealt a blow to Russia's oil refineries. They have taken out, as a matter of fact, 20% of Russia's oil refinery capacity over the course of their attacks throughout the month of August. So the president is continuing to watch this intently, and this killing, unfortunately, will continue as long as the war continues, which is why the president wants it to end. And that's why he's worked harder than anyone to end this war, which would have never started if he were president, but perhaps both sides of this war are not ready to end it themselves. The president wants it to end, but the leaders of these two countries need it to end, want it to end, must want it to end as well. And I think the president will make some additional statements on this later.
My second question has to do with, I just had one more, if I may. It has to do with the president's intention to remove Lisa Cook as a member of the Federal Reserve Board. He is going or acting upon allegations that have been made by Trump administration official Bill Pulte. These are just allegations. She hasn't been convicted yet of any crime. Is the administration opposed to allowing Ms. Cook to have due process to challenge what has been alleged against her?
I believe she is challenging it. I believe she just filed a lawsuit today, and Mr. Pulte has deferred those allegations over to the Department of Justice to investigate them. What I will say is that you had these mortgage receipts very clearly shown to the president, and he has the cause that he needs to fire this individual. He laid it out in a letter that he provided to her and to the public as well. And so we'll continue to fight this battle. Carrie.
Hi, Caroline. So the president just announced that he wants to have a convention right before the midterms next year. The DNC has countered that they too want to have a convention right before the midterms as well. What's the White House's response to that? And can you give us just a little bit of a hint or a tease here as to how the president envisions a convention and what terms?
Look, the president put out a statement on this earlier today. I'll let him speak further on the plans that he envisions, but I think he's very proud of the accomplishments and the achievements of his administration, as he should be. The most secure border in United States history, a crackdown on crime here in our nation's capital, an attack or a reversal of the attack on our energy industry from the previous administration. As I just pointed out to you, gas prices today, this Labor Day, are the lowest they've been since Labor Day in 2020. Our economy is bringing in trillions of dollars in revenue from all over the world again. So there's so much for Republicans and for the president and for Americans across the country to be proud of, and I think the president wants to see that celebrated. But for any further details on this as they come, we'll provide you with them. Iris.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions on the shooting. What's the administration's message to some concerned parents across the country who might be now worried about their kids' safety in light of the latest incident?
We completely and totally understand the concerns of parents across the country. This tragedy it's heartbreaking. As a parent myself, there are no words to describe just the heartbreak that these families must be enduring, which is why the president and the first lady have encouraged everyone to continue to pray for these families and these victims. And it's why this administration is focused on removing public safety threats from our communities. And in fact, I can share with all of you that last night in Washington, D.C., when arrests were being made, there was an arrest of a juvenile right here in D.C. in Ward 7 for threats to kidnap and injure, receiving stolen property, possession of a large capacity feeding device, unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. A search warrant was executed, 7 firearms were recovered, and the juvenile was arrested after an investigation was initiated based on social media posts allegedly threatening violence towards a school. So this was a juvenile who was a risk to not just himself, but the community here in Washington, and he was removed from the community last night because of the law enforcement efforts of this administration. And I would also point to the statement of our wonderful First Lady that she released yesterday. She wrote, "The tragic mass killing in Minnesota illuminates the need for preemptive intervention in identifying school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions. We encourage all Americans, as the old saying goes, if you see something, say something. If you see warning signs or threats, report it to law enforcement." This administration, federal law enforcement, will take those reports and those threats seriously. They will be treated as a law enforcement emergency, and we will act accordingly.
And on the First Lady's statement, would the administration consider ramping up resources on these funds to parents and schools across the country to help them look into these signs and prevent more tragedies?
It's a very fair question, Iris. As for any potential future policy decisions or funding questions, it's just been over 24 hours since this tragedy occurred. Right now, we're focused on the FBI and their investigation and uncovering all the facts, and we'll leave those very important policy discussions to another day.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Megan Lang. I had a question about the Lisa Cook lawsuit that you mentioned. Does the president plan to wait until that lawsuit is resolved to appoint her replacement?
I will leave that to the president to make that decision in that announcement himself. Brian.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. Bouncing off the CDC situation with CDC, I'm curious if administration officials are pushing back on the president's agenda, privately, publicly, however, should they fear to lose their jobs going forward?
Look, I think if you're doing your job well, and if you are executing on the vision and the promises that the president made to the public who elected him back to this office, then you should have no fear about your job. Just do your job. That's what this president wants to see. He wants to see people solving problems. He wants to see the people who have the privilege of serving the American taxpayer and the federal government abiding by the wishes of the American taxpayers who overwhelmingly reelected him in this cabinet to make America great again, or in this case, make America healthy again.
On the Intel deal, where the U.S. got a stake in that company, there's two things I want to ask about that. The first is, what did the U.S. get back in return for that deal? And the second thing is, what are the future plans for giving any form of money to another company? It could be through the CHIPS Act, like this deal, or some other form of funds. What are the plans there by this White House administration?
Well, look, as you know, Brian, very well, because you cover it often, the Intel deal is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce. The T's are still being crossed, the I's are still being dotted. It's very much still under discussion. But the president's thinking, I can share with you, is certainly to ensure that the United States government is making our country wealthy again and is benefiting from some of these deals. And it's a creative solution. I know it's outside the box thinking, which is uncommon in this city, but it's something that he proposed and something that the Secretary of Commerce is working on putting into action. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a couple questions on the shooting yesterday. The first one, this is the second shooting involving a trans-identifying shooter who specifically targeted Christians and Catholic kids. What kind of consequences do the gender-affirming therapists, doctors, or even the parents of these shooters face after these types of shootings?
Well, as for the parents and potential therapists in this case, again, all of that is still currently being investigated by the FBI. I know the Secretary of Health and Human Services this morning said that HHS is investigating perhaps links between some of these drugs and these prescription drugs that some of these minors may be taking and an increase in violence. And obviously, we have mental health problems in this country that this administration and Secretary Kennedy will continue to speak out about and the work that we're doing to solve it.
Not surprised. Thank you very much. Chris, please.
Fantastic, Christie. Sorry about that, Mr. President. Like Secretary Noem, I'm thrilled to be here to work with you on the simple platform you were elected on, which was to bring back the American dream, to bring jobs and opportunity for families across the country and to lower their costs so they can live their lives and expand the choices they have. You led off today talking about gasoline prices. I'll throw in diesel. If you correct for inflation, they're at multi-decade lows. This is a huge expense. This is a huge constraint on people's lives. We should celebrate that. Natural gas has become our main industrial fuel powering factories around the country. Natural gas prices are quite low in this country, and they're lower than in any country in the world. The reason for that is the United States produces 2 times more natural gas than the second largest natural gas producer in the world, and 4 times more natural gas than the number 3 and number 4 producers in the world. So you've opened up American opportunity and energy together with the work of Secretary Burgum, Administrator Zeldin, Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Rawlins. You know, we've made it easy to produce energy in America again, and those benefits are flowing. I could go on about this stuff forever, but let me talk about one specific area of energy, electricity. That's in the front of people's minds. When the day you were inaugurated, we get hold of all the data. We can look at the resource plans of utilities across the country. What you inherited when you arrived was a plan over the next 5 years to close 100 gigawatts of reliable electric generation. So that's 100 large power plants. Now that was offset with a plan to build 22 gigawatts of reliable electricity generation. Their plan was to close more than 4 times as much electricity generating capacity as they were going to build in that 5-year period. How do we lead the world in artificial intelligence if we're shrinking our supply of reliable electricity? How do we reshore steel and aluminum and automobiles and semiconductors and all those jobs Americans want back in our country when we're degrading and shrinking our energy system? We were going to hand that leadership to China in artificial intelligence, not just to our economic loss, but to our huge national security loss. Your team around this table, and almost everyone around this table is involved in it, is just to completely pivot dramatically. We're stopping the closure of all these plants way before their retirement date. Some plants get to their end of life. That's a small percent of the planned closures. Most of those were just political nonsense at the cost to American taxpayers. So we have rapid new construction of power plants under in the United States. We're doing everything we can with suppliers who build the equipment for these power plants. They've got to build their factories bigger to build power plants in America. People thought those days were past. We weren't going to build big things in America anymore. We're just going to keep sending it over to Asia and overseas and just buy other people's stuff. Totally nuts economically, totally nuts for national security, and of course, crushing for working Americans, particularly Americans that work with their hands. But we are seeing a revitalization of those people, of that optimism. You showed that picture of that plant being built in Arkansas, dozens of those under constructions, just in artificial intelligence. But the reshoring of steel, of aluminum, of plastics, of fertilizer, semiconductors, like this, America is the land of opportunity. How did we get to become this awesome nation? Because we believed in the American dream and we leaned in on it. But the wealthy in our country and the coastal elites that live away from where stuff's actually made, they just lost their way, and politicians just let them have it. Your tireless campaign and your relentless messaging made people realize the American dream isn't dead. It's just been smothered, and we're unsmothering it and setting it loose. God bless your efforts. God bless your assembly of this team around this table. We're bringing the American dream back.
Thank you, Chris. Great job. Appreciate it. Lori, please.
Mr. President, everybody here who spoke works at the Department of Labor, clearly, which I love. They have all the correct talking points, but I think that's a testament again that we are all working together every single day. We talk to each other often, and the workforce, the skilled workforce, the education factor, retirees. It's been so important because they all touch the Department of Labor, and I have the opportunity to work with every single one. If you all haven't stopped by the Department of Labor, Mr. President, I invite you to see your big, beautiful face on a banner in front of the Department of Labor, because you are really the transformational president of the American worker, along with the American flag and President Roosevelt, because we're bringing business and labor together. And I was so honored to unveil that yesterday, and everybody is taking note of that. You also mentioned crime, and I think it's been important for my colleagues to recognize that now American workers can return to work and feel safe, that business owners aren't shutting down their businesses because they're afraid they can't protect their workers. And now it's open for business again, and it's starting right here in our nation's capital. Many things have been mentioned about consumer confidence up, unemployment is holding steady, and more than 2 million net jobs for native-born Americans has been key under your leadership. 84% of the workforce and jobs has been produced by the private sector. I think that was the mission of this administration and the Department of Labor. And I will continue to say for a little bit longer, until I heard you today, the one big beautiful bill, because it equals one big beautiful workforce. And Congress passed this legislation. It probably will be the single most important bill that they did sign, because it is protecting our American workforce by expanding Pell Grants and childcare and reduction in taxes, that they can keep more of their hard-earned dollars. I am at the Department of Labor announcing $30 million in grants for our skilled workforce, that I have an MOU with Secretary McMahon. I have an MOU with Administrator Loeffler. That's important to share the data points on how important this is. In June, we awarded nearly $84 million in grants for the capacity of what? Registered apprenticeships, an executive order to have 1 million active apprentices across this nation, where we've already registered 185,000 since in the last few months. One of the other things that we have done is the Biden administration's guidance on cryptocurrency. And thanks to you and your leadership on that, we've rolled that back. And of course, we're going to see the 401k, the investors in our alternative assets. That's been key through the Department of Labor to work through. Partnering with our agencies, again, as I mentioned before, is important as we work together. I have visited, I'll be 31 states on my 50-state tour by the end of this month. I'm headed with Secretary Duffy, with the South Korean President Lee today, as we move through the shipbuilding. We will do that in Philly, and then I'm off to New England to talk to those states about how important the apprenticeship program is. But while I visited Hexel in Salt Lake City, 100% domestic carbon fiber for the Department of Defense as they produce. They are announcing another $1 billion investment per your executive order on advanced manufacturing. So it is working. Everything that you have been saying since you were elected and since we all can put into play has been working. Ohio, McDonald's is investing 375,000 new jobs. The shrimpers I visited as well, and they need our help in protecting that industry for our American fishermen and shrimpers. In Minnesota, I toured Cambria. When we're talking about quartz countertops, all made in America. And again, in Oregon, where we are expecting a crackdown. Thank you for what you are doing with your agents on ICE. And thank you for the prosecution that I hope you will come to Portland, Oregon and crack down. But while there are still good people, I was able to visit Buckeye Pacific, really a trading floor for the timber industry. So we still want to focus on great, hardworking American businesses. Mr. President, I couldn't be more excited to ring in Labor Day in Erie, Pennsylvania for the Labor Day Parade. I will be there to welcome it. It is an honor to serve this country. It is an honor to serve under your administration as the Labor Secretary, and we will kick off, and Republicans will own Labor Day again, not Democrats. We will own it because we are, and you are the president of the American worker. So thank you for everything that you've done. Absolutely.
You're doing a fantastic job. And I will tell you that Lori was recommended by the Teamsters. I said, that doesn't really work, does it? And it turned out to be one of our best choices. So I just want to thank you and Sean.
Thank you.
Who, as you know, recommended you very strongly. You really turned out to be a gem.
I was able to talk to the president on the phone the other day. He called and we visited, and he said, but I know that you were, you know, a little bit middle of the road and not so sure. I said, Mr. President, I have been a Republican. He's like, what? Wait, what? Now I like you even more. I said, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Thank you.
President, I'm working with everyone around this table almost daily on legal issues that we're winning on. But today, because it's Labor Day, President Trump, if I could focus on public safety, not only domestic, but from our foreign adversaries. And Secretary McMahon, I know you know kids are out of school this weekend. It's Labor Day. And Secretary Duffy, you know our highways are going to be packed with travelers coming to not only our nation's capital, but all over this country. We're also going to have boaters, Secretary Duffy, right, on our waterways. It is illegal to be under the influence and on a boat. So get a designated boater if you're out on our waterways, whether it's the Potomac or the Gulf of America or the Pacific. Wherever you're out this weekend, people need to be safe. And on an international level, Secretary Rubio, thank you for all your help on everything we're doing, and everyone around this room. But yesterday, there was a big, big win. El Mayo pled guilty, and he was the co-founder of Sinaloa Cartel with El Chapo. And there's even a Narcos Netflix series about these guys. Well, now we know the ending. He's going to die in an American prison. They are one of the worst, El Chapo and El Mayo, some of the worst narco traffickers in our world. And he will spend life in prison now. And that's so important because those guys and others throughout this country, throughout this world, have brought into our country drugs, cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamines that's killing our kids. And we have to stop that. And that's what you've been doing, not only in DC, but around the country at your leadership. And over the weekend, parents need to know, with kids out of school, with people out on our highways and on our waters, do not take a pill from anyone you know, don't know. Do not buy anything on the street. It could be laced with something toxic. We've seen so many fentanyl overdoses. And when you were here in DC, we showed you pictures of some of the drugs that had been seized right here in DC. President, they were packaged for children, and people are dying from these around our country. So thank you, President Trump, for your leadership and for letting Americans know that it's now a safe place to go. But parents also have to know, college kids have to know, to be vigilant and not take this trash, because you could be thinking you're taking a Xanax, an Adderall, anything, and it could be laced with something very lethal. So thank you, President Trump. Thank you, President Trump.
Fantastic this last 12 days in DC. The job you and your whole group has done is,
All of us.
everyone's talking about it all over the world. I hate to talk about that, but we have to. It's becoming a very safe place again. And the work, I've seen how hard you work the last, well, from the beginning in all fairness, but this focus on DC is so important for the country. So great job. And to everybody.
And President, it's a team around. We're all working hand in hand, side by side, all of our agencies together to make America safe and DC safe. And Iris, congratulations on your baby. And I'm so glad that you're safe now.
Thank you, Pam, very much. Mr. VP, would you like to say something?
Yes, sir. I'll be brief, but I want to congratulate you and the entire team on all the things that have been accomplished. You'll hear about a lot of it. You've already heard some of it, but I thought it'd be helpful, Mr. President, just to take stock, not just of what we've accomplished, what we will accomplish, but of the mess that we inherited, because I think it makes this first Labor Day a bigger and more special occasion. You heard, I think, Christy talk about this, that all of the net job growth under the Biden administration had gone to the foreign born. Now that net job growth is going to American citizens who deserve opportunity in their own country. That's a great accomplishment. You'll hear, I'm sure, Scott talk about the success with tariffs. People forget that we inherited the largest peacetime deficit in the history of the United States of America. And now, because the president is not letting foreign countries take advantage of us, we're collecting hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars over 10 years in tariffs from countries and companies that were formerly taking advantage of the American people. You heard Pam talk about the public safety and the success that we've had there. I happen to believe that maybe the most sacred thing that we can deliver to American workers is the ability to live safely and comfortably in their own neighborhoods. Public safety is not just something that should belong to the wealthy. It should belong to every working man and woman in the United States of America. And because of the work of this administration, that is happening. And of course, Mr. President, you yourself talked about the inflation mess that we inherited. under the Biden administration. Maybe the most striking and even shocking statistic of the Biden administration is that housing costs have gone up by 100% over the 4 years of the Biden administration, literally doubled, making the American dream of homeownership unaffordable. We've made great strides and great progress already. But to the American people who are listening, there's a lot more to do. We're going to keep on working hard at it, but it's an honor to do this job under the president's leadership and with this very great team that you've assembled. So we've done a lot, but there's a lot more work to do, and we're very cognizant of it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Scott?
Good, sir. As we've said very often, economic security is national security, and our country has never been so secure thanks to you. You have brought us back from the edge. You have the overwhelming mandate from the American people. You're restoring confidence in government, a topic that is on the front of everyone's mind, the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's independence comes from a political arrangement between itself and the American public. Having the public's trust is the only thing that gives it credibility. And you, sir, are restoring trust to government. You are weeding out the waste, fraud, and abuse, and the old ways of doing things are not good enough. We are seeing a blue-collar boom. In the first 7 months of your administration, real blue-collar wages have taken off. And the only other time that they've done this in the past 70 years was in your previous term. Your efforts on tax, trade, and deregulation have boosted paychecks for American workers while slowing the pace of inflation and lowering the cost of energy. Inflation has plummeted to just 1.9% since you took office, and the economy rebounded with real GDP surging 3% last quarter. The blue-collar boom coincides with a CapEx comeback. In anticipation of your one big beautiful bill becoming law, CapEx increased by American businesses by nearly 14% in the first half of this year. And as you and I talk about frequently, and as that chart or that photo attests, we are going to see, I believe, a bigger CapEx boom from here. This is just the beginning, just the beginning. You have saved this country by making it the best place in the world to do business again. Treasury is helping to implement these new provisions, as well as no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. This weekend, I will be meeting with workers from local restaurants to discuss the positive impacts of the pro-labor reform on no tax on tips. And I have to tell you, thanks to you, when I go into a restaurant or stop by a Hotel Dorman, I am the most popular person there. And since my first job at age 9 was as a busboy getting tips, I am going to spend Labor Day going from restaurant to restaurant, talking to workers who receive substantial amount of tip income. So I'll hear directly from them how your one big beautiful bill is increasing their take-home pay and making a big difference. Now, we can also talk, that is domestic. On the international front, you have leveled the international trading system whereby countries took advantage of us, and that's over. It's over. The Treasury Department is taking in record tariff revenues that I had been saying was running at a rate of $300 billion a year. You chastised me for saying that it's not, that number is too low. And as usual, you're right, that we had a substantial jump from July to August. And I think we're going to see a bigger jump from August to September. So I think we could be on our way well over $500 billion, maybe towards the $1 trillion number. This administration, your administration, has made a meaningful dent in the budget deficit. The average budget deficit during this term is 26% less than the last 12 months under Biden. And even the CBO, and we don't agree with CBO on everything, as you said, last Friday, on a summer Friday, had to admit that they believe over the next 10 years, the budget deficit will be $4 trillion lower than they had previously scored. 4 trillion, 3.3 trillion of tariff income, 700 billion of lower interest cost, and I would expect that that number could go up from here. So, Mr. President, your return to the White House marked the return of the American worker. Thank you for reclaiming Labor Day for the American people. You're growing the economy for everyone, especially the middle and lower income households who suffered disproportionately under the last administration. And it's an honor to do this under your leadership.
Great job. You're doing great. Thank you very much, Scott. Brooke?
Sir, I dropped my second son off to college last week. And I wasn't planning to say this, but just listening to everybody, I wanted to put a little bit of a personal touch on this work. He started his freshman year yesterday at Texas A&M, for all my SEC friends in the room. Thank you for saving college football, by the way. We're all very grateful. The country just feels different. It just feels different. There's such a optimism and a love. There's a faith movement going through, especially with our younger Americans. And for those of us with kids in college, I know we feel it. And I experienced it firsthand last week, moving him and my other older son in as well. As we move toward Labor Day, you have made a lot of dreams come true for a lot of people, but one of my longtime dreams was for the right to recapture Labor Day. And I've been talking about this for almost 20 years and writing about it, that why are we ceding the day that we are celebrating the American worker to the Democrats? Because this is our day, perhaps of any day of the entire year. This is our day. America was founded and fought for by fishermen and farmers and workmen and et cetera. The Genesis, the first book of the Bible, talks about the righteousness of work and the art of creation. And so to be part of this effort to represent the farmers, the ranchers, the agriculture industry at this moment in time, which I do believe we're in a revolution. 1776 was the first one. 1863 or so with Abraham Lincoln was the second. This is the third with Donald Trump leading the way. And we are saving America. And the idea that we are putting the worker, the very central component of the American dream, at the center of it is the reason that it is so. So at USDA, it continues to be my greatest honor to fight for the original American worker, whom I think the farmer is and what they represent. And as we are building new systems and new structures, as we have this year going to have the best harvest on record for our row croppers and others, what this team has done and is doing to open up those markets to ensure that these farmers can continue to return prosperity to rural America. I'll finish with this. This morning, we had a working group with 6 of our cabinet members. Bobby Kennedy representing healthcare, Linda McMahon education, Lee Zeldin deregulation, Kelly Loeffler small business, Lori Chavez Trimmer labor, and Scotty Turner housing. And how you leading the way in your vision, how that will return the golden age to rural America, to the very fabric of our country. And whether it's better hospitals, better education, more opportunity, less government, better and bigger small businesses, better opportunities for our workers, and better housing, and of course the agriculture piece of that, through the big, beautiful bill, the bill, what it did, the greatest investment in rural America in history. And now the opportunity to effectuate that is, again, a game changer, a country saver, and what a joy to be able to do it under your leadership. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stated. Thank you very much. Scott?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm so grateful to be here to celebrate Labor Day with the greatest team in America. And it is football season, so I'm happy about that. But Mr. President, I want to say thank you for, as George said, reclaiming Labor Day. And you've been a tremendous champion for the American worker. I come from a hardworking family, as many people around this table do. And so thank you for helping us to change the conversation. And I believe we are changing the conversation around the kitchen table. And as everybody knows, my job is to steward HUD. And we have at HUD been very intentional about changing the conversation about the dignity of work and the dignity and the honor of family formation through work, and how the younger generation, when they see their parents work, how they're incentivized to work. And that, America is not a welfare state, but America was built on small business. It was built on entrepreneurship. And so as it pertains to housing, we're being very focused on that, and even some that receive HUD funding to make sure, like our Section 3, when you receive HUD funding, that you are given opportunities for the most vulnerable Americans that you serve to have work, to have opportunities to work, to have work requirements. Work requirements are not a bad word. That's a great word. Time limits is a great word to incentivize people, able-bodied, able-minded people to work. And I believe that we are, under your leadership, sir, changing that conversation in America to where working is an honorable thing. And Secretary Wright talked about revitalization. Revitalization means to bring new life. And I believe we're bringing new life to America, Mr. President, through work and through all the jobs that people are doing around this table. And with the One Big Beautiful Bill, the most extensive tax break in American history, opportunity zones are now made permanent. And you know how passionate I am, and you are too, sir, about opportunity zones. And so this will allow us to continue to build affordable housing around our country. And Mr. Vice President, I'm coming your way. I'm coming to Columbus later this week and to see how we can continue to build affordable housing in our country with opportunity zones. And 1 million people, Mr. President, were lifted out of poverty because of opportunity zones. $90 billion of private money was invested in opportunity zones, urban, tribal, and rural. And now that they've been made permanent, we're looking for millions more to be lifted out of poverty, $100 billion to be invested, hundreds of thousands of jobs to be created, hundreds of thousands of units of housing to come online. And so, sir, I sit here very excited about the future of this country. I'm very proud to be at this table, humbled to do so. And HUD, we're on a good path. So thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
And helping us.
Thank you very much, guys. And I want to give credit to Tim Scott, great senator from a place called South Carolina that we love, right? And Tim really came up with opportunity zones, and we did a good job of working with him. And together we created something that nobody speaks of very much, but it's probably the most successful thing that's ever been done of its kind. It's been amazing. So Tim Scott deserves a lot of credit for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Russell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I get the opportunity to go hand by hand with all of these people as they move their DREGs to the Office of Management and Budget. And I wanted to zoom out for a second. In the first term, you gave us a goal of 2 for 1. And then we outperformed it through your leadership. We came in at around 5.5, 6 for 1. And then as you're running for your second term, you put out a goal that when you put it out, I was thinking to myself, that's going to be a pretty ambitious goal. You said 10 for 1. Well, where we are right now, in just 1 month, in 1 year, basically 8 months, we are at 245 deregulatory initiatives planned by these agencies. That comes out to 30 for 1. So we are making incredible strides. And, as you're focused on the details of each one, I mean, these aren't small things. Endangerment finding is one of the most deregulatory things in the history of this country. NEPA reform, incredibly deregulatory. WOTUS just came in, which is Waters of the United States. So every single one of these agencies is doing incredible work when it comes to deregulatory, and we add that to the work being done to get us going on energy, reduce spending. We're going to lower costs for the American people. We're going to be able to have innovative jobs and get them back to work. So thank you for your leadership, Mr. President.
Thank you. Great job, Russell. Appreciate it. John, central casting, I call him. He's central.
Well, Mr. President, I'm grateful to be with everyone today as we're talking about jobs and workforce. At CIA, consistent with your directives to all of us, we've embraced your mantra for a leaner, more effective, more efficient workforce. But at CIA, Mr. President, we had an additional challenge because, as you know, at times, our workforce had been misdirected. Its focus put on political narratives, some that even worked against you and always worked against the American
I
people.
heard about that.
But under your leadership and your direction, we have been focused back on the core mission of what CIA is supposed to be doing, which is to provide you and this entire incredible team around the table with a decisive strategic advantage in accomplishing your goals. And your success in that regard, the examples are clear and many. With regard to Iran, everyone knows that our DoD partners executed that mission flawlessly. But flawless military operations are subject to flawless intelligence. And as you know, Mr. President, CIA was the backbone in terms of its intelligence operations in providing that flawless execution that allowed you and your team to obliterate Iranian nuclear facilities and set back a nuclear program by years.
Right.
Likewise, with regard to your ability to prevent and to preempt wars between India and Pakistan, between Armenia and Azerbaijan, between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. In all those cases, CIA intelligence supported you and your entire team in making that possible. It's not just you, it's folks around this table, Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lufkin, Trade Representative Greer, and their great successful negotiations on trade and tariffs. Again, it was a CIA workforce working to enable them to accomplish your goals. So as we roll into Labor Day, I tell you that the CIA workforce at the Trump CIA is grateful to be focused on what it's supposed to be, which is helping you prevent and end wars and to make America safer.
Thank you very much. You've been really fantastic, but I'm not surprised. I've known John a long time. I'm not surprised at all. Thank you very much. Steve, please.
Mr. President, working for this government, for you, is the greatest honor of my life. I tell it to everybody, and I really do feel that way, and I thank you, because it's a privilege to go out there and represent you in your humanitarian effort, in your goals of solving conflicts all over the world. I think there were actually more than 7 conflicts that you put to bed in the last 8 months. And I hear these, I travel all over the world. In Hostage Square, they talk about you reverentially. It's really quite amazing. I sometimes wish that I had a cam recorder with me and I could put you right there as I listen to it. I was in Gaza, the first American diplomat, on your behalf, and as we delivered food and aid pursuant to your new aid initiative, pushed forth by your great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who it is a privilege for me to work alongside. The people were applauding you. The signs were up. I mean, these are people who I just don't think you get the proper credit for it all. We are negotiating multiple entries into the Abraham Peace Accords because of your vision. Azerbaijan, all these different conflicts that we're out there on your behalf on, these are people who have never really seen the world change in this way. Peace through strength really, really works. Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, Hamas, we're having meetings all this week on all 3 of those conflicts. And we hope to settle them before the end of this year. Your team is nothing short of incredible. And there's only one thing I wish for, that Nobel Committee finally gets its act together and realizes that you are the single finest candidate since the Nobel Peace, this Nobel Award was ever talked about, to receive that award. Beyond your success, it is game-changing out in the world today. And I hope everybody one day wakes up and realizes that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Jameson, please.
Mr. President, I like to think of Labor Day as the Trump trade policy day. Because everyone around this table and everyone listening knows that one of the major reasons why American workers and organized labor voted for you is because of your trade policy and the policies you've had and advocated for 40 years or more. You have reset global trade policy in the past few months, and it shows that it's been working for American workers. When you look at President Biden, in the last quarter of 2024, median weekly earnings fell 2.1%. In the first quarter of your term, they went up 3.3%. And that's why we're doing the trade policy we're doing. It's to help the workers of the United States of America. And they're the best in the world, but they can't do it without a level playing field. And you have flipped the script. For many years, the other countries had high tariffs and high non-tariff barriers, while we were open to, right, to all of their labor and services and goods and capital. You flipped it. Now we have the tariffs, and they have lowered theirs and non-tariff barriers. We couldn't have done it without you and the leverage you've created. So between the tariffs and the deals, the hot streak continues for the work of America. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Really good job, by the way. It's a good negotiator. Good negotiator. Thank you. Please.
Well, Mr. President, I feel like, as everybody here has talked about how great working with this team is and all, but I do feel a special need that you give me the privilege of working with the best of America. I get to take care of the veterans. I get to take care of the veterans who Labor Day really finds its roots in, if you think about it. We wouldn't have Labor Day if it wasn't for men and women who would leave their jobs and go fight this nation's battles to keep us free and independent so that they would have jobs to come home to. And over the past few years, they've been coming home to many times a government that was keeping them back, holding them back, taxing them, regulating them. And now we have veterans who represent the bill, the big, beautiful bill. They're the beneficiaries of it. And I get to see them all the time because they're receiving the benefit, because they see the jobs, they see the care that they're getting. And these veterans can look at their country with pride, knowing we're taking care of it, just like you told me to do. When your only statement you said to me, I asked you what to do, you said, go take care of my veterans. Well, that's what we're doing. One of the other things we're doing right now is, for many of you, I love to hear how you're deregulating everything, and I've worked for Congress and worked with many of you before. I get to do the same thing with the largest bureaucratic organization in the government. We're deregulating from the inside. And it's amazing to me because we have such a powerful workforce at the VA who really want to do good, but yet they kept tripping themselves up. They kept making their own, they take one step forward and put a regulation in, and put them 3 steps back, and it always hurt our veterans at the end. We're taking that away. We're making community care again, Mr. President. We talked about this yesterday. We're making community care a part of our direct care system. So if a veteran wants to get into the community, they have our direct care, and they also have the ability to go into the community. Something that the previous administration decided they wanted to keep everybody inside because they thought it was a fiefdom they were building. I'm telling you, we're not building a fiefdom at the VA. We're trying to take care of a service organization that takes care of veterans. So how do we do that? We make best medical interest where a doctor can send a veteran to the community a lot quicker without having to worry about miles and time logged and wait times. Just get them the help they need. We've actually expanded out, and it's made a difference in this regulation, and also unleashed a workforce that is now free of the collective bargaining agreements and other things that have kept them from being able to do the job of national security that they've been intended to. I'm actually giving them the benefit of the doubt to actually go be the workers that they're called to be, and that's what Labor Day is about. The VA is going to have the best workers. But just to let you know how that's working out, wait times at our hospital are going down because we're getting them in our hospitals or into community care. And then one for you, Mr. President, you heard about this a lot, and that was backlogs. If the backlog, when I first came in, and I said this before, in February, we had over 260,000 backlog. That means over 125 days of not getting an answer. In just a little over 4.5 months, we've dropped that over 100,000. We're under 150 and heading down to historic lows. We'll be within the next month lower than any time under the previous administration at all. That means our veterans are getting the help they need. So when you look at it this way, we've opened new facilities. We put new facilities in places where workers can get to. We've expanded out hours, over 1 million extra hours, so veterans, younger veterans in particular, can get off of work and bring themselves and get their appointments in after hours on Saturdays. That's what it means. Veterans. That's what it means. Who fought for us to be on this table today. And it's all because of what you've done and the progress that we've made.
Well, you've done a tremendous job, and I hear it all the time. We have a 93% approval rating at the VA now. And you know what it was before? It was like horrible.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Mr. President, there's been some conversation about the Pete and Bobby challenge. I would just note that I don't think Pete or Bobby could hold these sticks for 2.5 hours. If they want that to be the challenge, so be it. But I think 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups might be
You know,
easy
it is
to
a
do.
person. We didn't have this problem with Biden.
Yeah,
It was in and out very quickly.
So kudos on Labor Day to the audio team that's holding the sticks. But Mr. President, it's pretty great to celebrate Labor Day with a builder who loves labor, who loves the men and women who built this country, the people that sweat, that have great skills, They have grit. They do the dirty jobs of America that have made this country great. And you know them very well because you have worked with them. The great Trump projects have come from the very men and women we're going into this weekend to celebrate. We all want to claim Labor Day in our departments, but I'm going to claim this at DOT because, you know, roads, bridges, pipelines, shipbuilding, rail, passenger, and freight all fall under the great men and women who wear boots and make this country wonderful. And at DOT, we don't want to have the Congress spend money. We want to take the money that Congress gives us and actually deploy it and put these men and women to work building the great projects of this country. You said the big, beautiful projects that connect this country. And that's why we have got rid of the DEI. We've got rid of the green. We've done what we can to streamline the regulation to move these projects faster. Time is money. And time has been money. Even Democrats agree now that it takes too long to go through the regulatory process. So we're going to move these projects faster, putting the great American worker back to work. I want to make a quick comment. We've all probably talked about this horrific accident in Florida. And I appreciate the help of Christy and Marco on this very issue. But in May, we said, listen, it's a safety issue if you can't proficiently speak the English language. And we gave states a little over a month to comply. And Washington, California, and New Mexico have refused to comply. And by the way, this individual in Florida received a CDL from Washington, from California, and received a speeding ticket after our rule went into place, and they didn't stop him. And had they taken him out of service, he wouldn't have been in Florida, and we would have 3 beautiful people alive today. And I make that point because it's the work that maybe no one sees that then, you know, shines a light when horrific things happen, but also that your cabinet works together and teams up to make a difference for the American people. Real quickly, so we have a safety mission at DOT. I don't know that you'd think of the transit unions in the greatest cities of the country, New York maybe being one of them, that support us, but they do, because the violence in the subways and on our buses across the country, the transit workers are the ones who take the most abuse. And they're grateful for the mission of everybody around this table fighting to make their communities safer. So I appreciate everyone's help on that. But they, again, the transit unions love the effort that all of us have put in together. One quick FAA. We are about to put out a request for proposals for a big, beautiful bill. We got build. We got 12.5 billion in the big, beautiful bill. We need more, but this is a great start. I expect the middle to the later part of July, we'll be through the process to bring the proposed integrators to you for selection. So we're looking forward to that. We will have the most, I'm learning from you, this is going to be the greatest contract ever crafted in the federal government for this build for air traffic control. Really, it's innovative, and we have unique tools at FAA. It's going to be a great contract. Bobby left me out of the windmill conversation, Bobby, but so there was a study done in the last administration that said if you build windmills 1.2 miles, within 1.2 miles from a roadway, it can mess up the automation and technology on a car. Same thing 1.2 miles from rail. The last administration buried that report, Mr. President. And so now what we've said is, what we're going to do is say, listen, I'm sorry, it is a safety risk to build windmills this close to roads. By the way, they want to build them by roads and by rail. We're going to say no more. It is a safety risk. Right. And we have a report to show that.
You hear that, Lee?
Just real quick.
It's a good idea. That's great.
Good team effort. I wasn't invited to the party, but you know, so maybe next time, Bobby. One last thing, we have this Mars to Moon mission at NASA. No, Moon to Mars mission. Sorry about that. But sometimes people think that space doesn't matter to them. But if you look at every rocket that's launched, the machinists, the truck drivers, the electricians, the welders that build these rockets in the industry that has developed over the course of the last 10 years in space, it's truly remarkable. It's not just, you know, rich guys sending up rockets in partnership with NASA. There's a whole industry of working men and women who be celebrating, design the rockets that are making America the leader in space. So thank you for your leadership and happy to celebrate.
Thank you very
this
much,
weekend
sir.
with you, Mr. President.
Really great. And he is doing a good job at NASA too. And we are, I think we'll have some pretty exciting announcements. And you enjoy it.
Been fun.
I said, how about temporary? He said, well, can I go a little bit longer? He loves it. He loves it. And he's doing a really good job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Howard, please.
So, making America great again is one of the key statements, and people don't always understand what you mean. So, we always talk about 1870 to 1913, but in the mid 1980s, America owned more of the rest of the world than they owned of us. We owned $140 billion of the rest of the world net of what they owned of us. And when you came into office this time, the rest of the world owned $24 trillion more of our assets than we owned of theirs. And so when people argue with you about, the trade deficit is nothing, the trade deficit sends 1.2 trillion of our dollars to them. And what do they do with it? They buy the great America. Because when we learned in college, what we learned was that if you keep printing these dollars, they're supposed to devalue. But the problem is we're too smart. We invented the light bulb, the transistor, the GPU. So they keep buying us. And the only president ever to understand it, and you understood it in the 80s and the 90s, and I used to, see you on TV and you'd say, God, what are these people doing? And finally, we've changed it. So let's go over what we've changed. So Japan and Korea, they're never going to open their markets to us. So we've negotiated $900 billion that they're giving you to invest in national and economic security in America. The European Union, the second largest economy, $20 trillion. And all the experts said, you'd never get a deal done with them. And watching you in Scotland was my favorite thing, right? 15%, they'll pay us 15%, and we will pay zero. So we can export to their $20 trillion economy, and they can pay to come to the great American consumer, right? So a couple of other things. 4 days before you took office, the Commerce Department, which had the CHIPS money, they set up this thing called NatCast, which was a make-believe not-for-profit. And they signed contracts to wire them $7.4 billion. This was just nonsense. So we stopped the payment. We've got the money. It's an illegal thing to try to set up a department that's not the Department of Commerce, that kind of acts like the Department of Commerce. And what was it filled with? All these people who work for the Biden administration. I mean, it's exact corruption that you talk about. $7.4 billion now clawed back. Last week was the most fun. In 1 week, Intel came in, right? The Biden administration had given $11 billion to Intel, given it to them, done. Corporate just gift. And you turn that into really, it was like less than 5 minutes of conversation. And Intel agreed to give us 10% of their company, which of course was worth $11 billion. So it's not socialism. This is capitalism. If you give someone $11 billion, who's just building in America, they're not doing something special. They're building in America. And their CEO told the president he didn't need the grant. And you said, well, then why don't we get something for it? So it's amazing. You're going to watch semiconductors come home, right? We don't produce semiconductors. We've got $165 billion for TSMC, but you're going to watch the whole ecosystem come home because Donald Trump is the only president who understands the magnet to make them come home is one word, which used to be a favorite word. Now it's dropped to number 4, which is tariffs. Right? Tariffs are going to bring semiconductors home. They are going to empower Bobby to execute MFN. Tariffs are going to be one of those tools that he's going to use to do that. We're going to do it for furniture. We're getting autos. We got steel, aluminum. I mean, it has been a blast, a blast. So 2 more things. The Department of Commerce is going to start issuing